This is Flighty. As the name suggests, it's a flight tracking app, nothing too crazy. But I've been a paying subscriber of Flighty for a year, and every single time I use it, it's been joyous. And the app's actually turned me into a bit of an av geek, which is honestly not something I thought I'd be saying. So what could possibly be so good about this app? Well, I'll tell you what sets it apart from the rest, and also how it mimics Apple's core principles. By the way, just a disclaimer, for this video's personal research, I've paid for week-to-week Flighty Pro a few times, Plane Finder Premium, and I've used the free versions of other apps. So if there's anything that I say that you know isn't accurate, then please tell me in the comments and I would really appreciate it. So I want to start off with design and simplicity. Flighty easily has to be one of the best designed third-party apps on the App Store. And clearly Apple thinks so too, because Flighty was awarded an Apple Design Award in 2023. I'd say the app 98% follows the Apple design language, which is really hard for a flight tracking app. So, alright, when you click on one of your flights in Flighty, the biggest, brightest pieces of text that you see are the departure time and the arrival time, otherwise known as the two most important data points for your flight. Your gates and your baggage belt are also highlighted in bright yellow. It's beautiful. Oh yeah, and then we gotta talk about these flight history cards because they're honestly drool-worthy. I mean, look at them! And this amazing design language also ties into the simplicity factor of Flighty. Flighty's structured in a way that you don't really have to think. For example, Flighty will just straight up tell you the probability of your flight reaching on time in a simple graph. Another example, if you're sitting there for 5 hours on the tarmac wondering why your plane isn't taking off, based on personal experience, Flighty will just tell you why, and it'll even give you advisories from air traffic control that the airline just won't tell you. Or if you've got a connecting flight, Flighty will tell you how relaxed you are for your connection. Is it like, do I have time to shop, or should I channel all my energy into booking it to the gate? And you don't have to go digging through menus to find all this info because there aren't really many places to go. It's really just my flights, friends' flights, singular flight, flight history, and settings. And if you're catching on already, this is exactly how Apple attempts to work. They at least try to make their system as approachable and easy to use as possible. The second point I want to get to is that it just works. It was a common tagline used in the Steve Jobs days of Apple, but boy could it not be more true with Flighty. I mean, as an example, on one flight from SFO to EWR, I got no less than 25 different notifications. When I was testing Plane Finder, I got three notifications, and one of them was telling me I landed. Like as if I didn't break my head while the Ryanair 737 I was on broke the runway. Oh yeah, and you know how when you're in the air without internet, you can't get up-to-date info about your flight? Well, so long as you have Flighty Pro, and you have free messaging-only Wi-Fi on board, you can get up-to-date info, even though Flighty isn't a messaging app. Genius! Now the third thing I want to talk about is the social factor. Because most flight tracking apps prioritize tracking your own flights, the ones that you go on. Flighty takes it a step further and it includes your friends into the mix. And so when two people add each other as friends on Flighty, one person can see the other person's flights and vice versa. And the peace of mind that you and your loved ones can get from this feature is actually kind of sweet. Because since Flighty is designed for the average flyer, it doesn't matter if your loved ones are av geeks or they know nothing about planes. They can just go into the app and see exactly where you are in the air. Which is pretty important since on your long-haul flight, you're probably going without communication directly the whole time. So let's say my friend goes on a flight, when they land, they don't have to go into all their messages and type, landed safely, landed safely, landed safely, because everyone in their contacts, as long as they're a Flighty friend, was notified. Also on Flighty's end, it's just a great way for people to get to use Flighty, because I tell my friend about Flighty, they download it, then they tell another person about Flighty, then they download it, then they tell someone else about Flighty, and so on and so on. Now this next point doesn't align with Apple as we've seen in their products and features, but Flighty's the one doing the innovation and also perfecting it, instead of Apple who waits for others to do the innovation and then refines it later on. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Flighty was the first to do the whole dynamic island integration thing, which, by the way, is super handy to have on a flight, and then everybody else copied it. I think Plane Finder, Mileways, Planes Live, even Flight Radar 24 did it. For some reason, even though they don't have a My Flight section, Flighty's already done notifying you why your flight is delayed. They've already done the connection assistant. Flighty Friends, I think App in the Air had a Friends feature, but App in the Air is dead now, so that really doesn't count. Number 5, Flighty cares for the free user. There are really two main strategies that developers can use for pricing their app. Either their free tier is god-awful, it's the worst experience you can possibly have, and their paid tier is good. What Flighty does is they make their free tier good and their paid tier outstanding. Like Flighty Pro has so many Flighty exclusive features, which means that so many people flock to Flighty Pro, which means that Flighty doesn't need to rely on third-party adverts for their free tier. In the free version of Flighty, you will not see a single third-party advert. The only advertisement you'll ever see is for Flighty Pro. And it's not like a 30-second unskippable ad. The minute it pops up, you can dismiss it. And the X button is large enough for your fat fingers to click, which is something that you don't usually see on mobile ads these days. And finally, number 6, or really 5.5, Flighty is available on pretty much every Apple device. You've got an iPhone app, an iPad app, a watch app, and a Mac app. And you'll actually be surprised as to how many flight tracking apps aren't on the Mac. Alright, here's a personal message to flight tracking app developers. You do know that you can bring a MacBook on a flight, right? Unfortunately, there is no Flighty app for Android or Windows, which is a massive bummer. Now, do I like Flighty? Evidently, yes, I do. Are there still things that they could improve on? Yes, as well. So here's a flash round of some improvements they can make. First, I think Flighty should add a list of all the times that people will board. And if you specifically entered your seat and your class, filter out all the other boarding times except for the one that applies to you. Number 2, list some flight amenities like Wi-Fi, seat pitch, meals, charging. Number 3, be able to manually add your flights. Even though there are so many flights in Flighty's database, there are also some that aren't, like for example, charter flights. Number 3, you should be able to add your travel documents, notes that you took during the flight, and some pictures. What I think could be pretty helpful is Flighty can use data from other sites to show the seat layout on a specific aircraft or airline. For the AvGeek, you should be able to search a flight by its tail number. You see this aircraft section on Flighty 4? There was actually a bit more info in Flighty 3. So re-adding that info would be cool. Then, even though Flighty was the one that innovated on the dynamic island thing, in the actual live activity, the background shouldn't be gray, it should be black. Because when you view the live activity in the iPhone standby mode, you can clearly see where the live activity begins and ends, and it doesn't look very clean. When you compare it to Planefinder looks much better. Alright, flash round's over. I highly suggest you give Flighty or Flighty Pro a try. And yeah, I guess that's it for this video. So thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and also comment down below what you thought, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye! So guys, I noticed, right? That plane in the background, that's an A350, an Airbus A350, my favorite plane. But it doesn't have the Airbus mask thing. So like, that's an interesting design choice, Flighty.